Okay, today we're going to look at finding the total amount given the percentage of a partial amount. This can get a little confusing, and instead of just clicking your calculator, deciding whether or not you want to multiply or divide, and not knowing what numbers to do so with, it's a good idea for you to at least read the problem and understand what you actually know and what you need to find out. So if we read the problem, it says, in a recent year, 16.7% of all registered doctors were female. So what we do know is that there's 16.7% were female. Now, how do we know that? We know that because that's given information. So we have 16.7% were female. Now, what we need to look at, it says of all registered doctors. We don't know the number of registered doctors, and if we read, it asks us what was the total number of registered doctors. That's something we do not know. So I'm going to say that we've got the total number of registered doctors and if we don't know what the total number of registered doctors would be, we would use a variable. And in this case, we're going to just go ahead and use X. That's what we've been using. So we've got an X, that's the total number of registered doctors. And it's something that we don't know right now. Then they're asking if there were 57,300 female registered doctors that year, what was the total number of registered doctors? So another fact that we know is that there are 57,300 female doctors. And again, how do we know that? Because that is given information. That is given information. So now that we look at the given information and look at what we'd like to find out, we can go ahead and reread our problem. In a recent year, 16.7%. Okay, there's our 16.7%. What does of mean in math? Of means to multiply. So we know we're going to be multiplying something. And of all registered doctors, so of all registered doctors, we don't know, were female. And we know that were, just like is, means equals, and it's going to be 57,300 female doctors. Now, if we want to just clean this up and get numbers, we could put 16.7%. If we're taking a look over here, we could say 16.7% and rewrite that as 0.167. We would still be multiplying. Total number of doctors would be our unknown, our X is, and then we could just use 57,300. So now that we have this, now we have turned our words into a math sentence. And when we have our math sentence, it's going to be a good idea to solve a one-step equation. So we will draw our line, separating the left side of the equation to the right. Next, we would be isolating our variable. We want that X all by itself because at the end of the day, X is going to equal some number. And that number is going to be the total number of registered doctors. So when I have 0.167, that's my coefficient to my variable. To get the X by itself, we always divide by the coefficient to the variable. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. I will be dividing by 0.167. And we would divide the right side by 0.167. We can look, and 0.167 divided by 0.167 will give us 1. And we will multiply 1 times x, which will give us our x. And then we can go ahead and use a calculator, and we would put in 57,300. Fraction bar means divided by. So again, when we have our fraction bar, that means divided by. We're dividing by 0.167. That's going to equal 343,113.7725. Now, they are asking us to round to the nearest whole number. Because they're asking us to round to the nearest whole number, that means that when we are not going to have anything, we're not going to have anything to the right of our decimal point. I always tell the students, look at your number, look at the guy next door. If it's 5 or more, we round up. So we should have our x would equal 343,114, and that would